If you want to take advantage of the AI boom but are confused where to start, this is for you. By the end of this video, you'll be able to build literally any AI agent you can think of. We're going to be building the agent you're seeing on screen now, live in this video. And here's how we're going to do it. 7 steps to take you from wherever you are now to be able to build whatever AI agent you want and have a working AI agent by the end of the video. Starting with number 1, what is Agentic? What is meant by Agentic AI agents? Just before we get into that, the difference between an AI agent and an AI automation is the AI agent doesn't have a fixed path and it decides what to do based on the situation or the goal that it was given. And for an AI automation, it has a fixed path. So it'll go through the same steps every single time, which is really good for predictability. So what makes AI agents and automations agentic? So it really comes down to how they were built. So the traditional way of doing it is you could code them yourself, build them on things like NAN, Make, or Zapier. But the agentic way of doing it is using a AI agent to build your AI agent. That's pretty much the bottom line of what an agentic AI agent is. So in this case, we're going to be using Claude Code by Anthropic, but Codex is a good one from OpenAI as well. So now we've covered what is meant by agentic, it's now time to go on to the tools and the setup. So how to actually set up your IDE, which is just an integrated development environment so you can actually use Claude Code and build with it, and the folder structure within each project that allows you to build them properly. So starting with VS Code. So I like to use VS Code as my IDE. It's just nice and easy to use. So if you've never set that up before, let's do it now. Firstly, search up Visual Studio Code on your browser and then download the one for either Windows or Mac. Once you've done that and you've loaded it up, you should be on this screen. Come over to the Extensions tab on the left. Claude Code should be at the top, and then just install that. And you will need a paid plan with Anthropic for this. Once you've installed it and you've logged in, come over to the top right and you should see the little Claude logo. Press that, exit out of that, and then you're in Claude Code. Now you'll need to create a folder on your computer. Just call it Claude Code, and then within that folder, for every new agent you build, just add a new folder to it. So here's an example of mine. I've got the Claude Code folder there, and I've got the different projects within it. Once you've created that folder, come over to the Explorer in the top left and open that folder. And once you've opened it, it might have kicked you out of Claude Code, so just press the little button there and get it open. You can X out of that and X out of that. So now the folder will be completely empty at the minute. So I'll go over the folder structure that you have to set up in each of these projects to make sure it builds it correctly. So these are the 3 files that we need to create in each of the projects, called the Claude MD, the Plan MD, and the Progress MD. And what each of these files does is Claude MD basically tells Claude how you want to build in Claude Code. So it's got things like the tech that you want to use, and it's got instructions on how to use the Plan and the Progress MD. And the Plan MD contains the entire plan for the agent that you want to build, and I'll show you how to create that when we start the build. And the Progress MD keeps track of where we're up to on the plan, so that when we clear the chat, a new agent will have exactly all the context it needs to pick up where the other agent left off. So this is the build cycle that you'll go through every time you make a new agent or automation in Claude Code. So you'll start a new project, you'll create the Plan MD with Claude Code in plan mode to begin with, and I'll show you the best way of doing that in a little bit. And then you'll start building with Claude Code. The context window will fill up as it starts to build, and it will save all the progress to the Progress MD. You'll clear the chat so the context window empties, and then you'll tell Claude to get up to speed with the project. It'll then read all those 3 files, the Claude MD, Plan MD, and the Progress MD, and then you'll continue with the build. So I thought it'd be useful to go over what actually is context handling in Claude Code, as it can be a confusing term if you've never come across it before. So this is the same process that we were just talking about. So you start a chat, you build together, the context window fills up, and then it updates the Progress MD. You have to clear the chat, so you start a new chat, and then you repeat the process. So if you look at this bar on the right hand side, this is your context window, if you like, and every new chat you start, it'll start at below 10%. And then as it fills up and it writes code and it researches and all that, once it goes over 50%, the quality of the output, so say the quality of the code written, can decrease, and you'll know when it's gone over 50%. Because in the little chat bubble in VS Code, this will show up where it will tell you how much has been used. So when it goes over 50%, that will show up, and then you want to clear it back down, just so that the quality of the output is as good as it can be. Next up is going to be the tech stack, what tech is actually used to build these AI agents. So this is a look at the tech stack that I generally use for most of my builds. For the brains or the LLM, the AI in the situation, I usually use Claude because I'm generally making agents that conversate with customers, and I generally find that Claude is the best at that. And for the backend, I like to use Python and Fast API. Don't worry, you don't have to be able to understand Python whatsoever. You just need to tell Claude Code that you want to build your agents with Python and Fast API. And for front-end displays like dashboards and forms and stuff like that, I use Next.js with React and Tailwind. Again, you don't have to understand how to use any of that stuff. You just need to be able to tell Claude Code that that's what you want to use. And for databases and authorization, I use Supabase and other tools that generally speak to customers and connect to the real world. So for calls and sending texts, I use Twilio. And for emails, if you're dealing with a company who has a domain, Mailgun is one of the best ones to use. If you're dealing more with a personal agent, then just connect to their Google Calendar, Gmail, or maybe they use Outlook. And because we're building these locally, we need somewhere for the webhooks to be sent to. And a webhook is just one app sending data to another app when something happens. But if we don't have a public URL, we can't receive any of that data. So we use ngrok for that. Same again, you don't need to understand how to use it yourself. You just need to create an account with them and then tell Claude Code that that's what you're going to use. All right, now we're going back to the MD file system, but I'm going to show you how it actually looks like and works in Claude Code. All right, we're now in the folder that I've just created. As you can see on the left, we've got Claude MD, Plan MD, and the Progress MD. So let's have a look at the Claude MD. So it starts with my working style. Explain what you're doing and why, add comments to code explaining what each section does, stuff like that. And then it goes on to the base tech stack, which is what we were talking about earlier, which is the tech stack that I like to use across pretty much all the agents that I build. And so it'll default to these, so every time I make a plan, I don't have to tell it what I want to use. And then the session workflow. Every session starts by reading the Plan MD and the Progress MD. See Docs Workflow MD for the full plan and progress system rules. So we'll have a look at the docs folder in a minute. And then the rules, just a few rules that whenever you're building with Claude Code and it does something that you don't want it to do again, you can just add that to the rules and then it shouldn't happen again. So let's have a look at the Workflow MD within the docs. And just as a quick one, if you want to get your Claude set up exactly like this one, then there'll be a link in the description to GitHub and it will just contain all these folders. All you have to do is copy that link, put it into Claude Code and tell it to get those files and put it in your folder and it will be set up exactly like this. So the Workflow MD just goes over the plan and progress system, which is what we were talking about earlier. So the Plan MD, things like never make up what to do next, always refer to the plan, don't skip ahead or improvise, just so it follows the plan completely. And it just says again, every new chat must follow this sequence, start with reading the Plan and Progress MD. And then it just details the Progress MD, things like keep completed phases collapsed to a one-line summary so it doesn't get huge. If I ask for something not in the plan, log it in the ad hoc changes. The top of the Progress MD should be scannable in under 10 seconds by a new session, just to keep it nice and concise so we don't fill the context window up with our Progress MD. Right, now that you've got a good idea of the workflow within Claude Code, it's time to actually start planning the agent and building it. Right, this is the agent we're going to be building, and this is where everything will start to click once you actually see me build it from A to Z. So it's a lead qualification agent for a bathroom and kitchen remodels company. Basically what lead qualification is every time a business gets a new lead, it's pretty much a potential customer, and they don't know whether that customer is just inquiring for next year, next week, whether they want a whole new bathroom, whether they just want their sealant touching up. So basically, they don't know whether it's a £50 job, no job, or a 10 grand job. And business owners spend loads of time figuring that stuff out. And so this agent will respond to every new customer, ask them qualifying questions, and figure out if they're a high priority lead, medium, or low. So it's a really valuable system for a business. And here are some production extras that you'd include if it was a real build. Because with this just being an example, there's no point me going through a whole production ready build. I'm just going to create a build that is still useful but pretty simple. So what you'd have in production is you would have a system to notify the business owner or the correct team on both high priority and medium priority leads. You would also have a proper system to determine when we need to book them in for an appointment. You would integrate into their CRM. You could have a lead scoring dashboard if they don't have a CRM, but most CRMs have lead scoring within them. And you would set up real follow-up reminders Say, for example, for low priority leads, you might put them on an email drip sequence for the next year just to keep them engaged. But the system we're going to be building is really valuable, especially for a small business who doesn't have a CRM and stuff like that. Right, we've already covered context handling, and now it's time to start planning the agent. Right now, every single AI agent that you'll build will start with the plan. And how I like to build the plan is I have a voice to text on my PC. I use Whisperflow. Basically, you hold a couple of buttons down on your keyboard and then you can just speak into the mic and just go back and forth with Claude Code, and it's just way quicker than typing, so I'll show you that now. We are building a lead qualification agent for a bathroom and kitchen remodels company. The flow for this demo will be we submit a form on a website. The AI will determine whether it's a mobile or a landline with NumVerify. If it's a mobile, it's going to send us a text and we'll conversate on text and it will ask us qualifying questions. If it's a landline, then it can't send us a text, so it will send us an email. And so the qualifying questions that it will ask is pretty much to determine whether we're a high priority lead, medium priority, or a low priority. If we're a high priority lead, it's going to book us straight into the calendar. If we're a medium priority, then it's going to just notify the business. And if we're a low priority, it's just going to add us to an email list. For the calendar, we're going to use Google Calendar with OAuth. For the texting service, going to be Twilio. Email is going to be Google as well. And for the email list, just add them to a dashboard. Right, and now I just send that off and then it will create a plan based on that. Actually, we need to stick it in plan mode before it. So make sure that's in plan mode before you do that. So now it will create a plan off of that. It will ask us some clarifying questions. And so I'll get back to you once it's done that. As you can see up here, it read the Plan MD, Progress MD, and the Workflow MD. So it's just asking for the landline and email flow. Since we can't have a text conversation, how should we collect qualifying answers? And it's going to be email back and forth. Now it's just asking how should the time slot be chosen. Let's say AI sends available slots. And it's asking us what the notify the business action should look like. I'm just going to have it as dashboard only for this one because we've not actually got a business owner to send the notification to. But in production, obviously, you would just send that to their email or text. All right, seeing if we have any specific qualifying questions, I'm just going to let the AI design them. All right, it's finished the first version of the plan. Let's have a look. So it looks good to me. The main thing that you want to look at when you're looking at the plan is the context and the architecture, so the actual core flow itself. So read the context, make sure it's got the idea of the project correct, and then if it's got the flow of the project correct, then you're most of the way there. If we come down here, we can see the scoring it's going to use, so whether they're a homeowner, decision maker, what their budget is, the timeline, the scope, and if they get 12 to 15 points, then it books into a Google Calendar. If it's a medium priority, 7 to 11 points, then it gets flagged on the dashboard. If it's a low priority, they're added to the email list. And here are the different phases. So how the plans work is it will work through each phase individually. Once it's finished with phase 1, it will stop. If there's anything that you have to do, it will ask you to do that before moving on to phase 2. And best practice is when a phase is finished, you want to ask it to update the Progress MD. It usually will, but you just want to double check. So update the Progress MD, clear the chat before starting on the next phase. And it's just telling us which API keys we'll need. So I'm going to ask it to front load the API key. So we fill out that environment folder with all of our API keys at the start, just to get the boring bit out of the way. Right, so there's all the phases. As you can see, the environment folder with all the API keys is first. So let's auto accept that. And then it will ask us to update the environment folder. And whilst it's doing that, I'll just go over the different settings on the bottom here. So you've got bypass permissions, which you'll have to go into your settings to turn on. So I'll show you how to do that now. Go over to your settings and then just type in bypass permissions. And then you have to tick that and turn it on. So now that that's on, whenever it's building, you can just put on bypass permissions and it'll just crack on with it. And obviously you saw plan mode earlier. Pretty much those are the only two that I use. I'm either planning or it's building. All right, now it's time to set up our API keys. And this can be the most intimidating part about building AI agents. So if you can just get through this bit, then you're well on your way. All right, starting with Supabase. So go over to supabase.com and create an account. Once you've done that, you should be on the dashboard like this under your projects. And then you just want to create a new project in the top right. Usually I just give it the same name as the folder has. So I'm just going to call it Lead Qual Renos. Give it a password and select your region. You can be more specific than the continent. So I'm going to go with London and then create new projects. And if we come back into Claude Code, we can see under backend, it's created an environment folder and it'll put all of the placeholders in here that you need to fill in. So for Supabase, we need a URL and a key. All right, so it's actually 3 it needs for this project. So let's get it to update the environment folder with the right placeholders. Right, there we go. It's updated the environment folder and there's just 3 things that we need to get. First of all, the URL. If you go over to Supabase under project overview, if you just scroll down, your URL will be right there. So just copy that, come over here, delete that and paste it in. And now we need the Supabase key and the Supabase anon key. So if you go back into Supabase, come over to the left under project settings, go to API keys, and then these are the 2 keys you need. So firstly, copy the anon public one, put that under where it says Supabase anon key, paste that in, and now grab the other one and paste that in the other slot. Right, now we need our Anthropic API key. If you go to platform.claude.com, come over to API keys and just create an API key. Paste that in. Now we need num-verify. Go to num-verify, make an account and go to the dashboard and your API key will be right there. You get 100 free API requests a month, so it's perfect for testing. Right, next is Twilio. I've just squished it over to the right so it doesn't expose my API keys. Right, go over to twilio.com. Make an account and your account SID and auth token will be right there on the dashboard. Right, once you've pasted those over, you'll need to buy a mobile number. And they're only $1 a month, so it's not going to break the bank. So just go over to phone numbers, manage, buy a number, and then find a local mobile number in your area. I've already got one, so I'm just going to come over to active numbers and copy that one into the environment folder. Next is Google. So go over to console.cloud.google.com and create a project. Once you're in that, search up calendar and email. So calendar first, Google Calendar API. You're going to want to enable that. After that, do Gmail and enable that as well. Once you've enabled that, press manage and then go to credentials. And then you'll have to create an OAuth credential. So just press create new credentials, OAuth client ID, and this is a desktop app. Create that, and then your client ID and client secret will be ready for you there. And so once you've pasted those things in, the Google refresh token will be generated when it prompts us to sign in, so we don't have to do anything with that. Google Calendar ID is just going to go into our primary calendar, which is fine. And then the final thing is the app-based URL, so that is ngrok. Right, go to ngrok.com. Log in and then under Universal Gateway, go to Domains. And then there's your domain. So if you just copy that into the environment folder and that's it. So now Control S to save that. And then you can close that and tell Claude Code that you've updated the environment folder and you're ready to test it all. Right, it's just checking. It's done Supabase, num-verify, Anthropic. All 3 worked. It's testing Twilio, which worked. And as you can see, there you go. The context window is filling up. So it's just showed up now. It's gone over 50%. So as soon as this is finished with what it's doing, I'll tell it to update the progress MD and then we'll clear the chat and then I'll show you how to make a new agent get up to speed with the build. Right now for the Google refresh token, just tell it to run the Google OAuth helper and then it will prompt you to sign in. So it's prompted me to sign in. So just select your account, continue, select all and continue. Authorization successful. We come back in here and it's good. Right now phase 1 is done. Every key is in place and verified. So now I'll just tell it to update the progress MD and then we'll clear the chat. Can you update the progress MD with exactly where we're up to so I can clear the chat and a new agent will be able to pick up with phase 2. Right, it's done that. Let's clear the chat with /clear and say get up to speed with the project and crack on with phase 2. And that's literally all you have to do. Right, it's halfway through phase 2 and it's time for us to set up our Supabase database. Now, there's a couple of ways to do it. You can give your personal access token to Claude Code and it can just do it for you. But I think it's important that you know how to do it manually and then in the future you can give it your access token and then just let it do it. So I'm going to say I'll run this SQL manually. There you go, just ask it to give you in the chat the SQL to paste in. So there it is, press the copy button in the top right. Come over to your Supabase project. On the left, go over to SQL editor, paste that code in there, and then run it in the bottom right there. And we should get success, no rows returned. And if we come over to the table editor, there we go. We've got our calendar booking table, conversations, email list, and leads. Once it's done that, you can just tell Claude Code you've done it and it can crack on with the build. Right, phase 2 is complete. It was basically just doing a lot of the framing out of the project on the back end, as well as us setting up the database in Supabase. And phase 3 is next, which is handling the start of the workflow, which is the form submission and the lead routing and stuff like that. So let's tell it to crack on with that. Right now, phase 3 is complete. Hopefully you can see by how quickly we're speeding through these phases the power of building agents agentically. All you have to do is know what you want to build, know roughly the tools involved that you'll need, and then tell Claude Code exactly what you want to build, and it will just build it. So as you can see, it's updated the progress MD. I'm just going to clear the chat and then start with phase 4. Right, phase 4 is complete. It's just asking us to do a few things like start the backend, set the ngrok URL, set app base URL in the environment. Those are all things that Claude Code can do. So I'm just going to ask it to do those. After that, we can submit a lead with a real phone number, and we should get a text, and we can reply and have a full conversation. So I'll just get Claude Code to do these 3 things, and then we can do a test. There we go, all 3 things are done. So let's get it to give us the link to the form submission so we can send off our details. There is the link, and there's the form submission page. It's just a full name, email, phone number, the project type, and it's just got 2 options, the bathroom or the kitchen remodel, and tells about your project. I've just put looking to replace my whole bathroom, and a postcode and a budget range. So let's send that off, and we did get a text, and there it is. Hi Tom, great to hear from you. A full bathroom replacement is an exciting project. What's prompting the remodel? Is your current bathroom outdated, or are there specific issues you're dealing with? Let's just say it's outdated and see if it responds. So I got the first text from the agent, but when I responded to it, it didn't respond back. Right, it's fixed those issues. It was just an issue on Twilio's end. So I'm just going to send off that quote again, and so we can do a proper example. Hi Tom, great to hear from you. A bathroom replacement can really transform your space. I see you're in the area. Are you looking to do a complete gut renovation or more of a refresh with new fixtures and finishes? Let's say a complete gut renovation. There we go, now it's replying. When are you hoping to get started? Let's say, are you flexible with timing or working around a specific deadline? Let's say we're ready ASAP. That's great to hear, and it's just asked us what's driving the urgency. Just excited with the project, or is there an issue? Let's say just excited. Is this for your main bathroom, guest, secondary bath, and are you the homeowner? Just want to make sure we're talking to the right person. Yes, I'm the homeowner, and it's for our main bathroom, let's say. Right, it's just asked us, are we getting any other quotes? Let's say I've got no other quotes yet. So it's just taking us down that qualification route. So this will weed out any time wasters. And I was saying one last thing, what's the biggest thing about your current bathroom that you want to change? Is it outdated fixtures, layout issues, or something else? Let's just say it's just outdated. Alright, so now it's come to the end of it. Makes total sense. Someone will be in touch because we've not set the calendar up on the flow yet. But that was a really good flow. It asked us a load of good qualifying questions. So now we can say that went well, and we can crack on with the rest of the build. Right, so now it's phase 5, the email conversation. So same as usual, I'm just going to get it to update the progress MD, clear the chat, and then start on phase 5. Alright, phase 5 is complete, which should be email sending all sorted. And if we come back to the form, submit it with a landline, it should send us an email. Right, and there's the email it sent us. Hi Tom, thanks for reaching out about your kitchen remodel. It's exciting to transform the heart of your home. I'd love to learn a bit more about what you have in mind. And it's just asking us about specific areas you want to focus on. Let's just say, hi Sarah, we're looking to rip out and replace the whole kitchen. And there we go, it's replied to us. And I won't go through the whole qualification steps again like we did on text because it would just ask us the same questions. But that just shows the email route is working and it's replying to us. Right, phases 1 to 5 are complete. What's next is phase 6, which is scoring and calendar booking. So yeah, based on the scoring is whether it will get booked in for the calendar booking. So let's get it to start on phase 6. Right, so phase 6 is complete. That was the calendar booking and the lead scoring. I just did another example and it didn't offer me an appointment, so I don't think that's been updated yet. So I'll just get back to it with that. We'll also have to clear the chat now, so I'll do both of those at the same time. Right, I've just done another test and it's now sending me the booking link. We just had to simplify down the lead qualification a little bit. But if you look at the calendar, there we go. On Tuesday at 10 a.m. we're booked in. Right, that's phase 1 to 6 complete. Next is phase 7, which is the dashboard, and then after that phase 8, which is polish and hardening, error handling, edge cases, security and testing. So I'm actually going to get that to add it to a production notes section of the plan, because for this demo build I don't think there's much point us going into. Right, that's phase 7 and the dashboard complete. As you can see, we've got a load of test data in there so it can showcase all the different features. As you can see, we can see all the leads on the homepage and you can sort them by qualifying, booking offered, booked and stale. And you can click into any of these and see all the lead information, the conversation back and forth with the agent. You can go to the review queue, which shows a few leads for review. For example, leads that are still qualifying or have gone stale. So you could either follow up with them or add them to a different list. It's got the email list section for the low priority leads. And it's got the calendar section for the ones booked straight into the calendar. And that is everything. Well done for making it to the end. The final step was building the agent, which we've just done. Hopefully you found some value in this video. If you did, I would really appreciate it if you could like, and if you want to see more, then definitely subscribe. But other than that, I really appreciate your time and thanks for watching.